Welcome to The Secrets of Success. By following the proven techniques of the guests who appear on this series, you'll learn that even successful people run into detours and failures, and how you can apply their success techniques to change your life.
You're now listening to the most unique show on radio, the show dedicated to making you a success. Anyone can be rich if you have the right mental tools, says our guest, Dr. Mark Tobak. Dr. Mark, thanks for being with us today.
A pleasure.
Now, Doctor, first of all, I have to say it's a little unusual, and I'm going to ask you why. Why is a psychiatrist writing a book about money?
Well, there's a story to that.
Okay.
I've found over the years that most, if not all of my patients have money problems. And I'm tempted at times to intervene, to discuss their money problems with them and make points with them that are about emotions about money and also about practical aspects of handling money. And I got a warning from my very wise wife, who's a psychologist. You're not a financial planner. You're not credentialed to do this. You should stay within your sphere of competence and not step beyond your license. And I thought about that for a long time, and I thought perhaps the best way to approach finance and money and growing wealthy over a lifetime is to write a book about it. And I had this book running around the back of my head, and one day, most of my patients are ordinary folks. I have very few wealthy patients, but one very wealthy patient came in one day and just randomly asked a question: how many of your patients worry about money? And I answered without thinking, all of them, with the exception of that patient. So I said to myself, well, let me sit down and write this, and I give it away to my patients. I published it and give it away to my patients, and if it's appropriate, there are some folks that are not going to hear it or want it or receive it well, but for the folks that could, it's my gift, and it's also available on Amazon.
Now, also, Dr. Mark, I'd like to mention, in no way, you're not a financial planner, advisor. You don't have a financial company. You don't sell stocks, mutual funds, gold, silver.
Oh, nothing like that.
Okay,
no,
and I just want our audience to know that. So,
yeah, the closest thing I can say to dealing with finance that's in my resume is that I am a retired attorney.
Okay.
But no, I don't give professional advice in investment. My approach is thinking your way to wealth by understanding aspects of money that are really emotional and cognitive, and that falls within my psychiatric bailiwick.
Now, that's exactly what I was going to ask you next. You say the barriers to getting rich are emotional and cognitive. I'm sure people would be kind of shocked that say, no, I don't pick the right, I'm not making enough at the job, or I didn't win lotto or something. So could you explain what that means?
Okay, well, we'll start with emotions. People have very strong emotions about money, and their most profound emotion about money is the fear of loss. We are wired, just like a dog, to get very upset when something is taken from us. One of the first rules you learn about dogs is you don't tease them. You don't offer them food and snatch it away. You'll get bit. And we have the same mechanism. We get very upset with loss, get very upset if something is taken from us. We don't like being robbed. If you are robbed of even a nickel, that's a felony, because robbery, theft, it really bugs us. Machiavelli said that a person will sooner forgive the murder of a sibling than a theft. And Machiavelli was a very wise man. People get very upset with loss. So when people buy a stock and maybe on the advice of a friend and it drops off the map, they feel burned, they feel hurt, they feel that loss acutely, and many such people will not venture into the market again. People who buy a stock that drops may sell it in haste and regret at leisure when the stock later buoys back up. People get very upset with loss. So one of the first things you've got to do if you're going to invest. And everyone should invest, because if you just save, inflation will destroy your savings, because the inflation rate is 2%. We don't get 2% interest in savings accounts. When I was a kid, you got 4%. You won't see that anymore. So if you merely save, you will lose your savings to inflation. So savings is not a way to grow wealthy. Investment is, because if you invest in the broad market, the S&P 500 through a low-cost index fund, you average over the past 50 years about 10% per year. If that's in a non-taxable retirement account, $5 a day over 50 years goes to $2.5 million, and most people don't know that. Now, that aspect of it is compounding, and that is a cognitive issue, not the emotional issue. Now we're over in the cognitive issue. Now, the most brilliant psychologists, two of them, Amos Tversky, who's passed away, and Dr. Kahneman, who's still with us, they won the Nobel Prize. Not in psychology, because there isn't a Nobel Prize in psychology. They won it in economics. Their theory is that we have two types of minds. These aren't structures in the brain. They're aspects of the mind. The first type is the one we share with the animals. It's just reacting to things day to day. And it's quick, it's dirty, it gets you out of the way of an oncoming car. The other part that the animals have a lot less of, and we have a lot more of, and the potential for even more than we use, is the cognitive part, the part that can sit and figure out a math problem, the part that sits down and writes a report for school or the boss. That's the thoughtful part. That's the part you need to use to understand compounding.
Now, I'm sorry, Dr. Tobak, just I'd like to let our audience know at this point in the show that they're listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan, and today our guest is Dr. Mark Tobak, author of Anyone Can Be Rich. Dr. Tobak, you begin your book with, of course, Chapter 1, and the title there is Common Sense, Not So Common. Can you explain that title?
The title refers to the fact that common sense can only guide you to a certain point. And some types of common sense are, in fact, uncommon. That's the point I was about to make. If you use your common sense, a penny doubled every day for a month ends up as a bag of pennies. But if you use uncommon sense, if you sit down and work it out with this second cognitive system that Kahneman writes about, you find that at the end of a 31-day month of doubling a penny, you come up with $10 million. Now, that is not intuitive at all. It's something you have to sit and work out. So most people don't understand compounding, and they don't understand that if they invest for a lifetime at a 10% rate, they will be wealthy in their old age, which is the time you want to be wealthy, because that's when you need it. You can't earn it, and you need it to take care of yourself.
And a lot of, I think a lot of us can have fun with that doubling the penny, because you're going to win a lot of bar bets if the person hasn't heard that. You would think if you doubled a penny, okay, you might have $12 or something. Yeah. And if you do it for a month, you're showing us just one of those little magical financial tricks that you'd be over $10 million. Yeah. Mark, can you tell us, where is your website? If someone wants to learn more, they're hearing this, they say he's making a lot of sense. Give us your website, please.
It's Mark Tobak, MarkTobak M.D.org.
And where is the book available? And your book is Anyone Can Be Rich.
It's available at Amazon. It's available on Barnes & Noble. And there are links on my website to Amazon. The other links on my website that may be helpful to the reader, I blog at Value Walk, and you can get some samples of my writing. And, of course, there's a sample from the book on Amazon that you can read as well. But I would invite you to read the blogs. They're about compounding, about Darwinian approaches to the market, about understanding the market and how you can be successful in the market by taking a broad view of it, not buying and selling rapidly, but buying the broad market, holding on and watching it grow.
And for everybody's knowledge, having gone through this book, just even a little time spent will make you conscious of what your money is doing. And as Dr. Mark points out, just knowing this and maybe moving into one mutual fund or following one directive can be tens of thousands, if not millions of dollars, depending if you're talking about a retirement fund. And someday you can really have the last laugh where other people are putting money into lotto and to schemes and to the hot stock pick of the moment. You're going with the tried and true, and you're going to come out the winner in the end. In fact, Dr. Tobak, didn't I read something in your book? Warren Buffett, I think, bet $1 million that a hedge fund manager could not beat the Standard & Poor's 500, and he won because the manager, who's considered an expert, couldn't beat that index. Is that right?
It's probably one of the most important stories on Wall Street, and it's not broadcast the way it should. Warren Buffett, who incidentally has endorsed my book, he wrote me a lovely note about it when I sent it to him. The book is dedicated to him, his partner, and Jack Bogle, who runs Vanguard Funds, and also to Kahneman and Tversky, the two psychologists. That bet was a 10-year bet that Warren Buffett offered to any hedge fund manager who believed that he could put together 5 hedge funds that would, over 10 years, beat the S&P 500, which is a broad index of stocks. There was one hedge fund manager who took that bet. At the end of, I don't remember the figures for the 10 years because the bet is done, but at year 9, it was 22% for the hedge funds and over 80% ahead for the S&P 500. It ended up over 100% ahead, doubling your money over 10 years in the S&P 500. Yeah, the hedge funds bombed. Now, that's not to say that every hedge fund bombed, but here was a selection of what are supposed to be the savviest people around, and they could not beat the broad market.
And you point out that usually if we're following the crowd is usually going to be wrong. So if everybody is selling and we're selling, we're probably going to get ourselves in trouble. Or if everybody's buying real quick and says this has got to be a winner, because not being knowledgeable, we're probably coming in on the end, and that's just about when that curve is going to change. Am I correct?
Absolutely. The Buffett quote is, be greedy when others are fearful, be fearful when others are greedy. In other words, you go contrary to the emotional swings of the market. The market is run by a mob. That's how to think of a crowd or a mob is in charge of those prices. And they swing. They especially swing in difficult times. So you'll have market crashes and you'll have exuberance. We probably are in an exuberant mode these days, and we're probably riding for a fall. Ray Dalio said the other day he thinks it's about 2 years out that we'll have a fall because we've been riding high for, over 10 years.
And I guess that's just the way stocks go. If it goes up, there's no place to go but down, and if you're down, there's no place to go but up.
Right, but if you hang on and if you graph the overall direction of the market amidst these uncomfortable swings that are so agonizing to watch, you'll see that long-term, you'll be way ahead just by holding on tight. Now, there are sophisticated people who are wise enough to buy in when things are disastrous. The line from Lord Rothschild, I think it is, Baron Rothschild, was, buy when there's blood in the street, even if it's your own. In other words, when things are really bleak, that's the time you buy. Very few people have the guts to do it, but that's what Buffett and Munger do at Berkshire Hathaway. They have a huge store of cash right now, and when things go south, they'll be ready to buy. They buy now. They buy all the time. But the big purchases that end up making the big money, it's called value investing. When something good is depressed, you go in and grab it.
Now, Dr. Tobak, at this point in the show, we like to remind our listeners that you're listening to The Secrets of Success. My name is Bill Horan.